Welcome to Prologues. My name is Mary, and when I get overwhelmed and start feeling behind, I find it helpful to zoom out and remind myself that I am still in the beginning of my story. I'm sharing all of my life's chapters: mental health, relationships, wellness, beauty, the chaos of being in my 20s, and all of life's unexpected turns. Prologues is the best way to start your week, so join me every Monday morning for a new entry into my digital journal. Hello, welcome back. I'm recording with video again right now, and when I record with video, it makes me feel like I'm on a Zoom call during a presentation, but I am both the presenter and the audience receiving the presentation. I don't know why it feels so serious to add the video, because I'm staring just straight into my own eyes as I record, watching myself say the things I'm about to say, and just thinking to myself, who are you trying to fool? Who are you kidding right now? Especially me, my little slick back with my button down. Why am I dressed like I'm at a corporate happy hour right now? I don't know. I did just come back from happy hour, actually. I'm feeling very well fed and very cozy. I'm trying not to feel sleepy because I have to get this episode recorded tonight because tomorrow I'm flying to Texas. And here's the thing, you guys. Tomorrow is a Thursday. Usually I have therapy on Thursdays, but I don't have therapy tomorrow because I'm flying to Texas. So I'm going to tell you guys something that I would have told my therapist, except I'm not talking to her this week. I'm going to Texas. I'm spending a night in Austin, which coincidentally is where my therapist is from. Still won't be seeing her. And then we're driving from Austin to Dallas for a wedding this weekend. We're staying in Fort Worth. I'm having a lot of feelings. This is my therapy thought I'm going to share with you guys. A year ago right now, Matt was living in Dallas. If you've been following me for a while or keeping up with the podcast for a while, you know that last spring my husband played for the Dallas Jackals and he moved to Texas pretty quickly. He had about 2 weeks notice to move, and he ended up moving the weekend of our wedding, like after our wedding. 36 hours after our wedding. Not that I was counting, except I totally was, because it was a big shock. I was very much in support of it. I was fully supportive, fully on board. It was something that we decided mutually because it was good for him and good for his career, but it was also something we didn't have a ton of time to prepare for. And so he ended up moving to Dallas last March. And a year ago right now, he was there and I was in Arlington and we were doing long distance and I was living by myself for the first time in a really long time. I documented all of this on the podcast last year, so none of this is new information for you guys. The therapy thought is that I'm having a lot of big feelings about going to Texas tomorrow. It'll be my first time in Texas since Matt lived there. And it just is bringing back so many memories of what it was like to be there a year ago right now and what a different place of life I was in. Because I didn't have the best time of my life last spring for a lot of reasons. I think living alone for the first time in years made me learn a lot of really difficult lessons about myself. And I recorded a podcast episode that was called, I think it's How to Not Be Lonely When You're Alone, like how to be your own best friend. Like I said, I documented all these feelings the first time around in the podcast a year ago, but it's a year later and I'm going back and the feelings are coming back up again. I feel like especially since starting to work with a trauma-informed therapist, I wouldn't call this trauma. Like I'm not calling last spring a trauma. It was just like a hard time in my life. But I have learned through working with this trauma therapist that so many things are just cyclical and the feelings come and go and you work through them to a point and you move on and things are fine. And then something happens that reminds you of where you were a year ago or what you felt a year ago. And all of a sudden you're like right back in it. Like I said, I wouldn't really call this a trauma, but it was just a difficult point in my life. Like I did not love living alone for the first time in years, especially in like the first half of it. By the end of our time long distance, I feel like I did appreciate it in a lot of ways. And like I said, I learned a lot of lessons about myself last year. And although learning lessons sucks while you're learning them, you do come out the other end feeling better and like knowing more about yourself and feeling more self-assured and feeling like you've grown as a person. So learning lessons, although it ends up great, really sucks in the moment. And last spring, I was learning a lot of lessons. And Texas, Dallas, and Fort Worth in particular just remind me of that. Obviously, they remind me of that. Y'all know I was flying back and forth between Virginia and Texas every week, every 2 weeks for months last year, like traveling back and forth to visit my husband. And it's not about him. Like this is not about Matt living in Texas. It's not about him in any way. It's about me and my journey, because I think one of the reasons why last spring was really difficult for me is because it wasn't that I was long distance from somebody, it's that I was living alone, if that makes sense. If I had been living with another person, while doing long distance in a relationship, I think it would have been a really different experience. It's the fact that I had been living with my partner for years and then we were long distance, and that was like one thing on its own. But then I had to navigate solitude, like real solitude, in a way that I hadn't experienced in years for the first time, like I said, in a long time. So yeah, it was a big part of my journey. That was a really, really big part of my journey as a person last year, and my growth and who I am now as a person, to be honest. Like, I feel like when you go through a period of really intense growth in your life, sometimes it takes you years to even realize all the changes that you underwent, or the lessons that you learned in that time. And that's how I feel about last spring. It was just a hugely transformative time. And now I'm flying back to a place that I very much associate with that time in my life. And I don't know if I'm happy or sad. I don't know if I'm feeling nostalgic, or it's bittersweet for sure. And I can't even really identify why. I enjoyed the time I spent there. Like, I really loved visiting Matt. We made great memories. We had so much fun. We went to some amazing restaurants. We went to farmers markets. Like, I watched him play. I did also watch him get hurt. So, I mean, that's kind of hard. I did have the worst food poisoning of my entire life in Dallas, though. I can't forget that. That was 2 weeks ago last year. So a year and 2 weeks ago, I had the worst food poisoning in my entire fucking life from a Whataburger. It was my first time ever having Whataburger. Everyone was in my fucking DM saying, you need to go get Whataburger. It's a Texas classic. So we went to go get Whataburger. It was Matt's first time too. We had the worst food poisoning you could possibly imagine. When I say, like, think about the worst food poisoning you can imagine and then multiply it by 2, because there was 2 of us fighting over one Airbnb bathroom. It was not okay. You want to talk about experiences that bond you with someone? You want to talk about growth, like in a relationship? Try sharing an Airbnb when both of you have violent food poisoning. Like, you will come out a stronger couple. You will come out a better person at the end of it. So that was a bad memory. I'm like fired up thinking about it. Fuck Whataburger. I hate that place. That food poisoning was so bad that I felt sick every time I ate for like 3 weeks afterwards. It triggered my OCD to fuck. So yeah, that was a bad memory. But the rest of it was good. It's just that it makes me remember that time in my life. I'm reading old diary entries. I find myself wearing the same outfits randomly. Like, I very much associate the outfit I'm wearing on a certain day with the events of that day. I'm like pulling out outfits that I specifically wore last April, and I don't know why. I live my entire life in seasons, you guys. I live so cyclically, it's insane. Like, my brain wants to be in a rhythm. It wants to be in a pattern. I am constantly searching for patterns. My family and my doctor has pointed this out to me, that I'm a pattern searcher. And if a pattern isn't there, I'll make a pattern up, because I need there to be order in my life. I need there to be circumstances that make sense. I need things to be orderly. I don't need everything to be neat and tidy and organized 24/7. I just need it to be in a configuration that makes sense in my brain. And that's what I'm doing right now. I don't know. I'm just like looking for connections, I guess. I'm flying to Texas and I'm looking for connections that might not even really be there. And I'm just remembering a period of absolutely transformative growth that was for my ultimate betterment, but was hard at the time. And I can't tell my therapist about it tomorrow, so I'm telling you guys. Anyway, now that that's off my chest and that's done, we're doing a little girl talk, and I'm excited. Girl talks are my favorite episodes to make, because it's just my favorite thing to talk about in general. There's just nothing I love more. Like, I wish that we could all go to a restaurant together and order like a pitcher of sangria and go around the table one by one and like all share the girl talk things that are on our minds, because this is my favorite thing in the world. So I asked the Prologues podcast Instagram for topic ideas. You guys delivered as always. I've yapped about myself enough, probably. So let's get into it. Should I talk to my ex again? Probably not. It depends on the reason you broke up. I tend to be of the mindset that if you broke up with someone, it was for a reason. And unless there's been a lot of really significant growth and reflection on both sides, there's not really reason to open that door again. Like, once the door closes, what's the point in opening it again, unless you feel really certain that both parties have grown and learned something? So only you can answer that question for yourself. My first inclination would be to say no. I guess it would depend on your reason for wanting to talk to them. Is it because you miss them? Is it because you're afraid of being alone? Or is there like a deeper reason, you think? How long do you think someone should date before getting engaged? Completely depends on the couple and depends on what they're comfortable with. We dated for 2 years before getting engaged, and I thought that was a great timeline for us. We dated for a year and then lived together for a year and then got engaged. I thought that worked great. He thought that worked great. We felt like it wasn't dragging our feet, but it also wasn't rushing into anything, especially because we did have that time living together, which we both thought was really crucial. I don't think there's a hard and fast rule. I think it depends on what you want. I definitely believe in the idea of when you know, you know. Like Matt and I knew we were going to get engaged really early on in our relationship before we had been dating a year, but it still wasn't the right time to do it. So I think it depends on where you feel the relationship is headed. If you're already having the conversations and you feel really secure that the relationship is going where you want it to go and this is your person, then there's not really a rush. Like you've already established that that's where the relationship is headed. So you don't really have to rush. I think if you've been dating for a while and you haven't had the conversations of, hey, like, where is this going? Do we think we see ourselves together forever? That type of thing. Then I would probably start feeling anxious. But I don't think there's a time. One thing about me is I am such a DTR girly. Like, I don't live in ambiguity. If I'm questioning what the status of something is, I'll just ask. I think in general, you should always know where the relationship is headed. Doesn't mean you're rushing to get there, but you just know the path that you're on. So if you're in a relationship and you're like, I don't know, we've never really talked about where this is going, that's a conversation that I would probably have just because like I said, I don't live in ambiguity. I like to know what's going on because I'm anxious. And then once you know where you're headed, you can just relax and enjoy the journey. And of course, if someone changes their mind along the way, that's life. But at least you're on the same page about what the intentions are. I think instead of thinking to yourself, how long should I date before I get engaged? There are just other milestones that you should have in the relationship to pass first. Like, I don't think you should get engaged until you've had really serious conversations about your finances. If somebody is in debt, if somebody has a huge financial goal, if somebody has a spending problem or a gambling addiction or something that would seriously affect your finances together, because even if you don't completely combine finances, like I don't combine finances, I have separate finances, but your finances, your financial health is still impacted by the person you're with, 1,000%. I don't think anybody should get engaged until they have a conversation with their partner about how do we feel comfortable splitting bills? How are we going to split expenses? What are both of our attitudes towards careers and works? Like, what type of priority level do we place on making money? What are the financial goals? Do you want to buy a house? Do you want to have children? Do you have any debt? Like, these are really important questions that will affect your relationship. Again, even if you don't combine finances, we have like separate finances and then they're combined in like certain ways, but we both have independent finances of our own as well. But still, my financial health is impacted by my partner. My partner's financial health is impacted by me and my decisions. So you just have to be on the same page. So that's something I think you should talk about before you get engaged. I think it's good to generally be on the same page when it comes to family planning. Like, do you want kids? If so, when? How many? How would you raise your kids together? What type of values are important to you to instill in your children? How would you handle things like accidental teen pregnancy? How would you handle things like underage drinking? How would you handle your kids, let's say, dating? Is there an age where you would want your kids to wait to date to? Are both of you on the same page about wanting your teenagers to work? Are they going to buy their own cars? Are you going to help them buy their first cars? Are you going to give them allowances? Like, there's just so many different things that come to raising children. I think you should also be generally on the same page for. And then there's things like religion, politics, personal ethics, and values. I don't think you have to agree 1,000% with every single opinion that your partner has, because that's just not realistic. That doesn't exist between any group of people ever. But it is good to just be on the same page about most things, especially the big ones. So instead of thinking like, how long should we be together? I think you should be with them long enough to have naturally found out the answers to all these questions, because you will find out the answers to these questions through just dating someone and just speaking to them about life. And then sometimes you sit down and you have a serious like, hey, how do you feel about XYZ topic? Those conversations exist as well. But that's how I would go about it. Don't think about it as like a set amount of time. Think of it as you're trying to see the most complete picture possible of who this person is before you commit to spending your life with them. And people grow and change and evolve constantly. The person that you see before you that you're dating is not going to be the same as the person that you're married to 5, 10, 20 years from now. But if you can get a sense of who they are and what's important to them, what their values are, you get a sense of how they will change and grow and evolve. And then you can decide, do I want to be with this person forever? This one just says Bridgerton. I know there's a new season coming out. Okay, let's talk about it. Let's talk about Bridgerton. I think at this point, I love to hate it. or I hate to love it. One of the two. I don't love it, but I will watch it. I will watch it. I didn't love season 2. This is such a controversial take, and I know it is because I said this when it came out and people got mad at me. I didn't personally feel like there was that much chemistry between the two main actors, the actor and the actress. And I feel like that when I watched season 2, the whole time I was like, I don't know, something about the chemistry just feels forced or feels contrived. Like it just doesn't feel that natural. And then I remember I said that like offhandedly in a TikTok video, and people were like, what are you talking about? Like that was the hottest couple the show's ever had. Like the chemistry was just electrifying. The sparks were flying off the screen. Clearly, I missed something. I'll be honest, I only watched season 2 once, so I maybe I missed something. I don't know. But I wasn't enchanted with season 2. I didn't feel like the chemistry was there. And I'll tell you why. I can point you to one scene specifically that ruined the chemistry for me. It's that scene where the guy, whatever his name is, gets stung by a bee. Does he get stung by the bee or does she get stung by the bee? Actually, what happens? There's a bee and they're in the garden. And I guess the Bridgerton dad died of a bee sting. And then there's like a bee encounter in the garden. And the camera does this thing where it circles around the couple. What are everybody's names? I need to look up these people's names. Anthony and Kate, that's who we're talking about. Okay, so the camera is circling around Anthony and Kate, and there's like it's clearly a moment where there's meant to be a ton of chemistry between them, and all I could think of is that scene in Twilight where the camera does that circle around Bella and Edward, and you're like kind of getting dizzy watching it. That's the only thing I could think of. And from that moment onward, I was like, I'm just not seeing it. I'm not seeing the chemistry. But I also, to be clear, this is not Kate's fault or the actress who plays Kate's fault. I just don't think I liked Anthony. Like I just didn't like Anthony in season 1, and I couldn't really get over it. I couldn't get past it. Like I couldn't forgive him. I didn't like him in season 1. Thought he was an overbearing, overprotective, bullheaded older brother. And I just couldn't get past that. I don't think. So I watched season 2 and I will watch season 3. But at the moment, I'm like loving to hate it, hating to love it. When it comes to season 3, first I have to say the actress who plays Penelope, is that her name? Lady Whistledown? Okay. That actress, she's phenomenal. I just found out, along with apparently the rest of the world, that she's 37. I had no idea because I love that actress in Derry Girls, which is a hilarious show. And she's playing a high school student in Derry Girls, which she's in her early 30s. We need the skincare routine immediately. That woman is so youthful. 37 is not old, but she looks genuinely like she could be 18. And I was shocked when I found that out. She looks incredible. I love her in Derry Girls. I think she's hilarious. She's such a good actress. I like her a lot in Bridgerton, and I'll be watching for her. But again, am I supposed to like, is this show expecting to make me fall in love with Colin? I don't see it happening. If Anthony is the annoying, overbearing, overprotective older brother, then Colin always just came across as like the annoying, whiny, I need to go find myself younger brother. And I don't know. Everyone always says that, what is it, like the Bridgerton man curse? Like you don't think the Bridgerton leading man is going to be hot until his season, because that's how people felt about Anthony. And then Anthony, like admittedly, Anthony was a lot hotter in season 2 than he was in season 1. But I think I just like couldn't get past it. And I don't know if I'm going to get past the Colin thing. We'll see. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to eat it up. I'm going to watch the entire thing the day it comes out on Netflix, of course. But I don't know. I'm trying not to go into it too skeptical because I want to give it a fair shot. I've never read the books. Like I don't know anything about the series except what's on Netflix. But I don't know. What I will say, I loved Queen Charlotte. If I had to rank them, I would put Queen Charlotte over Bridgerton season 2 for sure. I thought both the lead actress and the main actor were phenomenal. I thought their chemistry was unreal. There were scenes in that show that literally made me sob. Like I'm tearing up thinking about it right now. Just the one scene in Queen Charlotte when Charlotte and George, they're married, but they're estranged, and she's confronting him and she's like, tell me that you don't love me. And they have this whole thing. And then George breaks down and he's sobbing. And what's that line? He's like, my heart calls your name. Sobbing. I was sobbing when that happened. That one scene alone and that one episode of Queen Charlotte was better than like any Bridgerton episode I've ever seen. I'm sorry. It was so good. I know it sounds like I've really made my mind up about it already. I am going to watch it. I'm going to try to be open-minded, but that's kind of how I feel. I just feel like if it's a love story, I need there to be less fancy camera work and I need there to be less intense music because I want the chemistry between the two actors to speak for itself. I don't know. That's how I feel. That's how I feel. Where/how did you find your therapist? So I found my current therapist actually through a podcast episode. I was listening to a podcast that was talking about religious trauma, and it mentioned an organization full of therapists that specialize in religious trauma. And I contacted that organization and got a list of recommendations, and that's how I found my therapist. How I found all my other therapists is through the Psychology Today dossier. If you go to psychologytoday.com, you can put in your zip code, your insurance, your diagnoses, or whatever you're specifically looking to talk about. You can put in preferred gender and age of your therapist. There's a lot of different ways you can filter through the results, and then you can search people in your area that take your insurance that are qualified to talk to you about whatever you want to talk about, et cetera, et cetera. That's a really good tool, and I've used that a bunch of times. How do you begin talking in your first therapy session? I'm ready to let it all out, but I'm scared to. So your first therapy session with someone new is called an intake, and usually it's pretty clinical. They sit you down and ask you a long list of questions from a form because they're trying to put together your file. And so they'll ask you kind of in a detached way. They'll ask you, have you ever had a suicide attempt? Have you ever self-harmed? Have you ever done this? Have you ever done that? And it feels very cold and very clinical, and you just have to answer all these incredibly personal and intimate questions about some of the darkest periods of your life to someone that you've never spoken to before. And it's not fun. I don't want to discourage anyone from doing it because you guys know I'm the biggest advocate for therapy in the world. I believe in therapy so much, and I know that it's changed my life for the better, and I literally wouldn't be alive today if it wasn't for therapy. But I also I don't want to pretend it doesn't suck that first session, because at least for me, it's always not been fun. I just want to be realistic about it. So I think you 1,000% should do it, but just be prepared for the fact that the first time you're probably not going to feel a deep connection with your therapist, and you're not really going to talk or chat about anything. You're going to answer yes or no to a lot of questions that are very, very intensely private and personal, and about things that you've maybe never spoken out loud before. When it comes to your first session after the intake, usually your therapist will sort of leave it up to you because they don't know why you're there. You know why you came. You know why you chose to reach out and get help, but they don't really know why you're there. Something I've done before is make lists. Surprise, surprise. I'm a list girl. Always have been, always will be. But I've made lists on my phone before or in a journal about why I'm coming or what's on my mind, because sometimes in the weeks leading up to a therapy session, you'll have so many things cross your mind that you want to talk about, and then you get there to the session and you just forget about all of it. So I think making lists is helpful, and as you remember things that you'd like to talk about, just write them down, and then you can refer back to that so you don't feel like you're stuck and you don't know what to say during your session. If you really don't know what to say, your therapist might ask you questions from your intake form and ask you to expand on that. They might do the classic, tell me about your life growing up. Tell me about your childhood. Tell me about your family. Tell me about, all these things. Usually you just need to start talking and then it'll start flowing. You just have to find something to talk about first. If you want to go to therapy, you have a reason. You do have a reason, and that reason is valid. So maybe try to write it out, and that way you don't feel like deer in headlights, like you don't know what to say. Favorite bikini brands for big chests. This is an ongoing struggle. Science has not advanced to the point that it needs to when it comes to figuring out swimwear for girls with different chest sizes, I swear. We've just barely started to get jeans that make sense for different hip sizes with things like Abercrombie Curve Love, things like that. Science needs to progress faster, okay? When it comes to bikini brands for big chests, I do think Abercrombie does actually have some good options because they have fuller coverage cups and then lower coverage cups. So it depends on what you want. I don't think I have ton of brand recommendations, but I do know that for me, I just know a strapless or a bandeau style, it's not happening. Like it's never going to stay up. It's never going to look good. It's good. It's giving uniboob. It's never going to be my favorite. It might be good for tanning. Like I do have a few bandeau tops that I just pull out when I literally just want to like lay out or sit on the balcony or something. But if I'm actually going to the beach or going to the pool, hanging out with people, I just know a bandeau, I'm going to be adjusting it constantly. I'm never going to feel quite right in it. It's just a no-go. I like a good old-fashioned triangle bikini shape with like the tie top and the tie in the back because you can just adjust it. And there's also, you should look up tutorials on different ways to tie a string bikini top because there's different ways you can tie them so that it feels more supportive and it doesn't hurt your neck quite as much, but you still get the triangle look. And I like the triangle look because you can squeeze the edges of the bottom closer together and get a little side boob and cleavage action, or you can spread the edges far apart and have the triangle cover your whole boob. I also like a triangle shape because it just makes sense to cover a larger boob than like a sports bra type of top or like even a molded cup. Like I feel like with a triangle top, you just get more flexibility when it comes to covering a larger surface area. But you should look up tying hacks for string bikini tops for larger chests. There's loads of great like videos out there for that. I also really like underwire bikini tops. I've seen so many people be like, who in their right mind wants underwire in a bathing suit? It's so uncomfortable. I beg to differ, and this is how I feel about bras as well. I don't understand the underwire haters when it comes to bras, unless they're just all people who don't need the type of support that I'm looking for. Because underwire to me makes a bra so much more comfortable. Like I need that underwire. I don't like molding and I don't like padding, but I like underwire because it's literally so much more comfortable to me. Yes, it's tighter around my rib cage, but it just relieves so much like pressure and so much weight off of my chest by giving that little bit of support. So I love an underwire bikini top. It also gives you a little bit of lift as well, which is really nice. So yeah, I don't think I have brands to recommend. I have brands that I like, but like specifically for big chests, I don't know. But those are my two favorite types of tops. How to make friends as a girl living alone. There's also a lot of other questions that just revolve around making friends and like how to make friends in your 20s in the question box. So this definitely needs to be an episode once I move because, girl, I need to know the answer as well. I've talked about this before, but I got really lucky after college and a lot of my friends moved to the same area that I did because that's just where all the jobs were. And so I have made new friends since school here and there, always through mutual friends, but I have been lucky enough to live close by to a lot of my like college friends in the last couple of years. This year, people have started moving away, like people are in relationships, they're changing jobs, they're moving cities. And then of course I'm moving. And so I will be not starting from scratch. Like we do have friends in Scotland. I'm very thankful for the friends that I have there. But I also know, like, I am going to need to still meet people. I am going to need to get out of my comfort zone. I'm going to need to meet people. And I will tell you what I'm doing to lay the groundwork for making friends in case that's helpful. Like, hopefully I'll get over there and I will be successful at pursuing new friendships. And then in like 6 or 12 months, once I've like really got a sense of how it goes, I can make an episode, how to make friends in your 20s with all of my tried and true tested advice. But I don't have tried and true tested advice right now because all the new friends I've made since school have just been through mutual friends and like meeting people at other people's gatherings or other people's parties or things like that. But what I'm doing is I have looked up on Instagram clubs, organizations, classes, etc. of things in Edinburgh. There's a Girls Who Walk in Edinburgh. There's I forget the exact name of it, but there's like a group of girls that does sober social stuff. So they'll do like paint nights or craft nights or walks or I don't know. I just think they like just do group activities, but their focus is on not drinking. So I thought that was cool. There's puppy yoga classes. There's pottery classes. I looked up just things that I think I would enjoy, like a paint and sip night, a pottery class, a long walk, like all the things that I would enjoy that I think someone similar to me would also enjoy. And I just started looking up on Instagram, like, are there groups that do this in Edinburgh? And there are. And so I have bookmarked so many things. Like I've bookmarked the walking group. I've bookmarked the social stuff while sober. I forget what their name is. That group. I've also saved a bunch of like studios that do things like paint and sip nights, pottery nights, because I feel like that would be a good place to meet people. And I've also started, this sounds so creepy. I sound like I'm being creepy right now, don't I? Because what I'm about to say is I've started following people that look really interesting on Instagram who live in Edinburgh because my plan is that, like, God, this sounds creepy. Is this weird? Is this how people do this, or am I just being weird? As I have specifically started looking up people who live in the city that I'm moving to, I'm following people that I think look really cool, look really interesting, and I was hoping to just like DM them when I get there and see if they want to, I don't know, go get a drink or something. Is that? Oh, I feel like that sounds like I'm being creepy. Now I'm questioning everything. No, that has to be normal, right? My social anxiety is going insane right now. That has to be normal. Because how else would you meet people? Like, especially in this day and age, if you're not using something like Bumble BFF, which I don't think I will do, like, how else do you meet people online other than just like DMing people that you think look cool on Instagram? Oh my God, guys, is this the wrong way to do it? Am I being weird? If I DM someone on Instagram and I'm like, hey, I just moved here, do you want to meet up? Is that person going to be like, this girl's a creep? Please let me know, because that was my plan. And now after saying it out loud, in my head, it sounded good. In my head, I was like, yeah, this is the way everyone makes friends. And now that I'm saying it out loud here, I'm like, wait a second, is this creepy? Fuck. Please let me know. Okay? Let me know. I'm sitting here like, should I go unfollow everybody? That's going to be even worse because then they'll like, because some people have already followed me back. Okay, no, okay. If it was creepy, then people wouldn't have followed me back. Right? I need a Xanax right now. Oh my God. We need to move on. How to know if you actually like him or just like the idea of him. We're struggling out here right now. Girl, you know what? Even just wording the question like that, I feel like shows that you've already done a lot of thinking about this. You've already been very reflective. I guess how to know if you like someone or like the idea of them is, do you like the things they actually do and say? Do you like the way they actually treat you? Or are you always looking at them and imagining this like fictitious scenario in your head where they're acting like your dream person? And then you end up crying and feeling disappointed in real life because that's not how they are with you. Like, we've all been there. I've been there in the past. We probably all have. Like, I think sometimes you fall in love with the potential that a person has and you forget that like you can't be with someone because you think they have potential. You need to be with the person that's standing in front of you right now. So that's what I would say is, do you like the person they are right now? Do you like the way they treat you right now? Are you thinking to yourself, oh, well, he's doing this, this, and this, but when this changes, it'll be different? Like, no. Do you like how he is right now? Or you feel like you're holding out because he has potential, because things might change in the future? I feel like that's how you tell. Good luck, girl. That doesn't sound like a fun question to be deliberating right now. How do you deal with worrying what you look like in different positions? This is so real. Honestly, every time that thought crosses my head, I just remind myself that my tits are out. And so probably the thing that I'm insecure about is not the star of the show. My tits are. Like, if nipples are out, he's looking at my nipples. He's not looking at anything else. Like, let's be real. And I don't know if that's helpful, but that's literally what I tell myself. Because if I'm ever in a position where I like don't feel super confident, because there are some sex positions that are just more awkward to get in and out of than others. And unfortunately, they're like usually the ones that feel the best too. So sometimes like during the transition between positions, you're just like, oh. But what I always tell myself, and again, I don't know if this is helpful, but this is literally what I tell myself, is my boobs are out. Why would anybody be looking at anything else when my fantastic rack is on display? And then I think that to myself and I'm like, oh yeah, everything's probably fine. So this question says, being treated like a quote unquote girl by your man, flowers, dates, etc., without having to ask for it. So I know exactly what you're talking about. You're saying that you want flowers, you want to be taken out on dates, and you don't want to have to ask for it, because I know exactly what you mean. You feel like if you have to ask for it, it makes it not special. Completely get it. Completely. Only thing I would say is I think it's okay to ask for it the first time. I know, and like, I'm like right there with you. Like, I know it does not feel special if you have to ask for it. But at the same time, even though you might think, well, they should just know I want that, they genuinely might not. So I think it is okay to ask for it, or ask for it like to make it be known that that's what will make you feel loved, respected, cherished, valued, adored, etc. in the relationship. Like, I think it is a good thing to establish that that's what you're looking for and that's what you want, and then see what they do with that information. Because I'm the same way. I don't want to have to ask for flowers because then the flowers won't feel like it's meaningful. But I also know that even though it seems like common sense to us that like, of course we want flowers, you still do have to make it be known that that's something that you want. That's something that would make you happy. So I would say if you've never said it before, if you've never like really clearly and explicitly stated, here are the things I'm looking for in this relationship that would make me feel loved, cherished, etc., then I think you should say that. But then if they don't do it after that, then you have to start wondering like, okay, well, are my needs important to this person or not? I just think it's true. Like, you can't expect the other person to be a mind reader. But what you can do is very clearly communicate your desires and your feelings and your expectations and your preferences. And then if they give a shit, then they'll take that into account and they'll move accordingly. And I think you can like pay attention to what they do after you clearly communicate. So that's kind of where I stand on it. I think there's also something to be said for just spending more time with someone and them like learning what you really like. So, for example, with the flowers thing, I told Matt I wanted flowers, obviously. So he gets me flowers. But then I realized a little while later that I also had to tell him that I didn't like the type of flowers he was getting me, which felt like a bitchy thing because if he's getting you flowers, you don't want to be like, oh, but I don't like those flowers. And then I was like, well, I can just tell him what my favorite flowers are. And so then I like made a point of being like, thank you for the flowers. And this other type of flower is my favorite. And then he started getting me those types of flowers. And now he knows. He doesn't even know what they're called. Bless him. It's blue and white hydrangeas, by the way, from Trader Joe's. He doesn't know the word hydrangeas, but he knows they're the blue and white ones from Trader Joe's. Okay, last question. How to start off as a YouTube content creator? So I think this partially cliche, but it's true. You just have to start. Like, you're never going to feel ready to post your first video. You just have to start doing it. More practically, I think you need good lighting. I think you need a camera that has a really good auto track and auto focus feature. Get a vlogging camera, like one specifically made for vlogging that has an eye tracking feature. Because when you're vlogging and you're looking all over the place or you're walking or whatever, if the camera can lock onto your eyes and track from there, you'll look in focus. That just helps a lot. So the Sony ZV-1 is good. Obviously, Canon G7X is a big one right now. But also, iPhones have incredible cameras. You can absolutely start YouTube with nothing but an iPhone, especially if you are going to be vlogging out in public a lot. It's a lot easier to pull out your iPhone than it is to pull out like a vlogging camera. Lighting is always a huge thing. Like, there's a lot that people can forgive when it comes to quality of production in a video, but people really like, no one wants to watch a badly lit video. So you should always try to have good lighting. You can get studio lights or ring lights off of Amazon. They're cheap. I think if you want to start making content, not just on YouTube, but in general, you do have to think about what is the narrative you're trying to create? What's the story you're telling? What's the point? Why do you want to make content? And when you make a vlog or you make a YouTube video, what's the point? If it's a vlog, great. What's the story? What's like the connecting piece? If it's a weekly vlog, for example, do you have like specific things in the week that you know you're going to vlog and a way to tie them all together? Because if so, that's going to make it way easier, not only for you to film and edit the video, but it's going to make it easier for the viewer to follow along. Everything just needs to have a theme. The viewer needs to be able to watch your content and understand what the main point is. And it doesn't have to be deep. Like, I feel like I'm saying, oh, everything you post has to be super well thought out and all these things. It doesn't really. It truly doesn't. Like, clearly, if you watch my content, you know. But it does have to revolve around something, like one central event or moment or thing going on in your life or something. You don't have to have a super crazy niche. I feel like the tip that content creators that are just starting out always get is like, you have to niche down, you have to find your niche. I think people sometimes over niche themselves, and then that stops them from sharing authentically about their life and like sharing really organically about their life. So I think you kind of need to find the balance between not being too niched down. Like, you are the niche, you're the creator, especially if you're doing lifestyle content. So like, your life is the content, your life is the niche, but it is good to have a couple different pillars of content that your audience knows that you talk about or knows that they can go to you for. So like, I would say for me, things that I just talk about all the time, you know that if you follow my pages, I'm going to talk about fashion and beauty, wellness, mental health, mindfulness, hibernation, traveling, religious trauma, hair, home, and maybe like different aspects of pop culture that you guys know that I'm into. The shows that I like, the artists that I like, and I talk about things like that. So you know that if you follow me, those are generally the things I talk about. I think it's good to have Just a few things like that you talk about often enough that you're not super niche down, but people know what your interests are, like what your hobbies are, what you're about, what you like and what you enjoy, what you'll share about. Okay, you guys, it is getting late and I haven't packed for Texas yet. So I also haven't even washed my hair and I'm doing a blue mask tonight because I am feeling very brassy. I'm getting my hair bleached again in about a week and a half. And I just feel very brassy because we haven't been able to bleach super light at this point. So my hair still has a lot of orange in it. Now, when I go back, we're going to try to bleach more of the orange out to get me back to like closer to how my hair looked last year. Of course, that is going to cause more damage. So I really don't know how that's going to go. But for the time being, because I have this wedding, I'm trying a new blue shampoo. It's called like Joico, Joico. I asked y'all for recommendations and I got this one a bunch. So I haven't even washed my hair yet. I haven't packed. I haven't washed my hair. I have to shave. I have to fake tan. There's like a whole list. And I need to get lost in my own imagination and my own thoughts about the fact that I'm going to Texas tomorrow. By the time you're listening to this podcast, I will have already come back. Like, this is entirely happening in the ether right now. By the time you're listening, I have already returned home. So I'm sure it went fine. I'm sure it was great. I'm sure it was a good time. I'm sure it was a great time. I'm going to journal so hard tonight and maybe on the plane tomorrow and get it completely out of my system, and then I'll be good to go. And it's all because I can't talk to my therapist. Like, when I have a week where I can't talk to my therapist, I don't know what to do with myself. I literally walk around my life feeling like something's missing. Like, who am I supposed to talk to? Anyway, thank you guys for listening to another episode of Prologues. We just passed the 1-year anniversary of Prologues, which I'm also having a lot of feelings about. Prologues is officially 1 year old, and I just have a lot of really exciting ideas for the podcast for this year. And I just want the second year of Prologues to be even better than the first. But thank you for tuning in every week. Thank you for hanging out with me and spending your Monday morning with me. I hope wherever you are, you have a fantastic week, and I will talk to you very, very soon.